You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm your host, Jay from the hills of Texas. And with me today is my good buddy.
I'm AK Mike in Texas.
All right. Hey, Mike. Well, as you can see, this is an unusual thing. It's you and I, and the normal host of the show is gone.
Where'd he go?
Or he's not here.
Wait. I think I heard a rumor. Well, it could be one of two things is kind of the way I'm going to look at it. It was either he had work or some kind of secret operation. I'm not really sure. I'm leaning towards work, but it could be secret operation. I don't know. I don't want to start.
It could be the nut and
gossip.
cheese incident all over again.
What year was that? 2019? I can't remember.
Something like that.
Oh my god. That's terrible.
Well, unfortunately,
we're horrible human beings.
So
yeah, horrible human beings.
But we're funny.
Yes, looking anyway.
Anyway, well, we're filling in, and we're doing what we have to do here to bring premium entertainment to our listeners and of our podcast. So, buddy, you came down and you came and visited me. In fact, you had an epic trip across the country and saw
I did.
Basically both of us, Mike, me, and also Eric from
Eric. That's right.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right.
So,
and even though it was specifically for
place.
family, you guys have been included in my family trip because I guess the majority of the trip was you guys, but I really went to go see my daughter who lives in Arizona. And that was I really had a great time with them, her and her husband, and we had a good time hanging out together and their dogs, and it was a good time. But yeah, so it's a long drive, Jay. That's a lot of hours to drive from Dallas to Arizona. I don't know, some 20-some or something. I can't remember what it was. 15. I think it was 15. But I decided to stop.
It's almost 30 hours round trip, right?
Right, and I decided to stop midway, and Eric was nice enough to put me up at his place, and I got to meet his wife and 2 kids, awesome people, the whole group, and we had a good time there, and then I drove the rest of the way the next day, went to go see Mike and hung out with him before he had to go to work. He works a lot.
He does.
And then
that's why he's not here.
What's that?
Yeah. I said that's why he's not here, so yeah.
Yeah, he does. He works a lot. So it was a great time. And then I got to fly my since I drove, I got to fly my paramotor up there as well, and that was good fun. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do any RC stuff while we were there because Mike was pretty busy when I got there doing other stuff. We worked on some stuff in his house together too. But next time I come up, which will be, I think I'm going up for AEF. So we'll have some stuff to do. I mean, hopefully we'll have some stuff to do then.
Awesome. Well, you rounded out your trip by stopping here. You went kind of out of your way and came through my place on the way out or way home and spent a couple of days here. And we actually got into a bunch of stuff. So why don't we tell the audience a little bit about that?
Well, that was some shenanigans. I mean, when I got there, what I like about going to your place, Jay, is that we almost always have one day of good weather, at least, and so we get to go and hang out and fly. And when I got there, though, you had this. I was like, hey, I got this idea. I want to build these. I found these gear for a Cub. And you and I, over the years, and I think anybody who's owned a Fun Cub, have, struggled with the way the gear works on the Fun Cub, how it splays out, and the wires don't really hold it well. Of course, my ability to fly it also impacts that. I don't fly it as well as I should, so I landed a little harder maybe than I should. And you said, "Oh, let's build this new gear. I found this stuff online." And then "Oh yeah, we could use your new resin printer, and that would be neat." And then we also tried the PLA or PETG or whatever else, and so that was kind of fun. I thought it was just going to be a couple of minutes, print out the parts, and and then off we go. But unfortunately, as you well know, the parts that were designed in the thing that we found were designed for some other plane, and we suspect that they probably broke they broke quickly for the original designer. But we don't know that for sure. Yeah. That's just but that's just our mindset. So Jay, what was your thought as I came over about what that was going to did you have imagination of how long it was going to take, or what we're going to have to do to get all that done, or what was your thinking?
Right? So whenever you do these projects, you go, "Oh, this is going to take X hours," right? And I basically wanted to get some new gear, right? And I had narrowed it down to two gear that I liked. One's the traditional
landing
gear, like solid fixed gear, like you would have for aluminum gear, all one piece.
Right.
And I saw that and I said, well, I could build that out. They had a version out of plastic that I could build. And I looked at that when I went, well, that looks good, but that looks like it's going to take a lot of plastic. It's going to be heavy, right, for the size of the, as big as the Fun Cub was. And then there was this other gear, and it consisted of solid carbon rods. It also consisted of smaller pieces, and what I liked about that was, I would have to scale the other version to fit my Cub. Fun Cub, and with the smaller version, all I would have to do is print out the pieces and then just adjust the rods to fit the Fun Cub, right? And I kind of thought about it, and I go, well, it's lighter, solid carbon, 4mm carbon rod's pretty stout, and it has elasticity, yep. And I was like, so I was like, and two, it looked good, you know what I mean? It has
it looked more original, or
yes, most, and it was the better looking of the two, in my opinion. And I figured, how long is that going to take? Because you just put these pieces together. It's like 8 pieces total or so, 10 pieces. And I figured, once we get that figured out, it'll be no problem to put it together, size it up, get it to fit on the Fun Cub. It'll be pretty easy, as opposed to waiting, 10 hours to print out the other version, right, on the printer. So I was like, sure. I'll do this. Plus, like you said, for Christmas, you and Mike had gotten me some new resin for my resin printer. It was like ABS-like resin, so it was a little flexible and harder material than the typical resin that you get with the resin stuff, which is really brittle. I mean, it's hard. If you make a small piece, it's great. Right. It feels really, really hard, but it can shear and it cracks like glass or like crystal, and it's just really weird when it'll happen. You just don't know if there was a poor layer line adhesion or whatever, and so it'll crack along that layer. But I was kind of excited to use this stuff. So like I said, I was thinking, it's not going to take any more time. I'll do it in the resin, because like a resin printer, if it says something's going to take an hour to print, you can print one item or you can print 12 items, whatever you can fit on the build plate. And I was like, this will be great, because we can make all the parts that we want, and then in 1 hour I can have all the pieces and parts. And that part was pretty much true, right, for the printing. I don't think we had too much problem once we actually set to go print something. We didn't have, I think maybe we had one failure, but pretty much we were able to make multiple parts.
Except for me messing up the machine.
Yeah, that's true, but that's neither here nor there. Those things happen. So this was all going great from that standpoint. The problem that we ran into, of course, was the actual logistics. You look at the pictures, right, and the guy just wrote a little paragraph about it, but didn't go into any great detail, and that was the part that we struggled with, right? Because it looks great in the picture. We see all the parts, and actually we couldn't see all the parts in the pictures, right? So then we were trying to figure out hey, we have an extra piece. Where does this go? And what does this do? And where should it go? To how do we make this fit on, in the same location, about the same place? How do we figure this out? And luckily, you kind of had an idea of what to do with there. And like I said, this was one of those projects I'm glad I had one of my friends with me, because we were able to power through it and get it made.
Right.
So why don't you tell them like what you did, and where I was just kind of like, just throw it together, we'll figure it out. And that wasn't quite the right answer.
Well, I think for me it was like, okay, well, since we don't know where the parts, we kind of know where the parts go. It doesn't really give you instructions about what to do. It's certainly not like a 1, 2, 3 kit, and which is kind of the fun of doing a DIY kit. Is you got to figure some of the stuff out. But there were some significant things that we had to figure out. Like we didn't know the distance between one thing and the next thing, and we didn't know what size of the plane the guy had, and we didn't know like all the things. So you had that great idea of getting bamboo sticks, and that actually made the project go a lot faster, because we didn't want to cut up carbon rod and it being wrong. And then so we put the bamboo sticks together and got kind of mocked it up a little bit, and that helped us figure out, we just have to do this and this will work. And so in the end, it just took time to figure all that stuff out. What does this need to be if this is true? What does this need to be if this is going to be true? And so once we figured it out, I think our biggest struggle would have been the rubber banding to make the stuff be stiff. So when I think we went out to the field after we put it all together, and we're like, okay, let's go try this. And it was awesome because it bumped along on the grass and nothing broke off, which was fun. And then you started flying around, and it was the perfect day to be doing a test flight. And you were flying it along, and then you said, okay, well, I'm going to come down for a nice, easy landing. And you sure did. And it was a beautiful landing.
A typical Fun Cub landing.
But the wheel broke off. It's like, what happened? Like, you did not come down hard. What happened?
Nope. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't like I was screaming out of the sky. Bounced at 5 feet off the ground. It wasn't exactly a super gentle landing, but the Fun Cub, it was nothing crazy for a landing.
It sure wasn't.
And the gear folded up. So,
and the funny thing is that the funny thing is the part that broke was not the part we expected to break. Like we had speculated before we flew.
Yes, that was
which part's going to break.
That was the surprising. Yep, that was the most surprising part of it. It wasn't the part that we expected to break. It was a clearly other part we thought was kind of beefy, but we had to go back later on. We had to go back and beef it up. And I think the material. Because we were using we did it all in resin,
right.
We did it all in resin, and like I said, we thought the part was going to be stiff enough, strong enough. It felt strong enough, and it felt like it gave enough that it wouldn't break. But it really wasn't.
Did.
So we had to go back
and
redesign, and once again, it's a little disappointing, but all in all, This was not your first time seeing resin stuff, but I mean, overall, What did you think of using resin prints for RC stuff?
Well, first of all, I want to let you know that, Mike and I didn't send you extra resin because we wanted it for you. Really, well, and I can't speak for Mike, but for me, I did it for me. So I was like, I'm going to be at Jay's. I'm going to get him some resin so that we can, because Jay, like me, is like, well, if there's 10 cookies left in the cookie jar, I'm only going to eat 9 of them. I'm not going to eat that last one because then I won't have any. And so I wanted to make sure there were a lot more cookies in that cookie jar when I got there so that we could, be free to do what we needed to do. But what I liked about the resin most was it was great for modeling. When to put the pieces together. Oh, these pieces fit great. It was easy to put the pieces in, because it was smooth. And the problem with FDM printing is it can be kind of bumpy, and you have to maybe sand it or do some other things to make it smoother. And that's effort that because we're doing something new, that's not effort didn't want to do. And so so it was great for that. I was able to slide the parts in, and now, I mean, like, we barely had to do, and because this stuff was softer, as you put it, drilling the hole out bigger, like, was no big deal at all. It took 2 seconds. You hand put the drill in there and spin it a little bit, and then it was automatically thicker or more open. And so, so I liked the resin for that. But based on what you said, I don't know what parts we could leave as resin, because we haven't flown it, we've only had one successful time. No, that's not right. We flew it twice. It broke twice. Right?
Right, we flew it twice.
Yeah, and it broke twice. And the second time it broke,
yes.
It broke in the same spot. We didn't expect it to break in again. Well, not the same spot, a little lower, I guess, but on this sort of similar area.
Right.
It was the same part, I should say, not the same spot, but it was the same part.
It was the same part, but in a different spot on the same thing, yeah.
Right, so then we printed those out in PTG, but I didn't get to fly it after we did all that changing and beefing up. What was the ultimate result on that? Did you get to fly it after that?
No, unfortunately, because okay, funny story with that. After you had left, and I went ahead and beefed up the parts and doubled the thickness and all that kind of stuff, and was putting it all back together so I could go out and fly it again. I had another friend that he just came into town, and he's here with me right now. He came into town, and the time, I mean, it was like he's walking in the door, and I was just finishing up gluing everything up. I looked down at the part, and I don't know when I did it or if it was just a bad print, but I had broken the part again. So I had to rip that stuff all apart, and I have to reprint that part. And I didn't even fly it. I might have.
That's a bummer.
You got to understand. I was trying to fit everything back together, and so I of course I'm like twisting and doing all sorts of things to get the stuff to go together. I wasn't being really careful, and I might have broke it when I was trying to put it together.
Sure.
And that I think that's pretty much what I did. And so I just have to put it. I had the wheel on, so I'm like torquing it with the wheel back and forth as I'm trying to get the rods on. And I probably should have just put the piece on, then put the wheel on, and after I got that fitted,
right,
put the wheel on.
Do that last.
Yeah. So I was just being what's the word? Not uncareful, but I just wasn't realizing how much torque I was putting on the things, trying to fit all the pieces back together, and I cracked the piece, and so I was just like, "Are you serious?"
So it's the same. Is it the same hub piece?
It's the same hub piece for that goes to that attaches the wheel to the.
We may have to rethink how that works. If it breaks, even with you torquing it, if it's breaking that easy. I mean, I don't know how much force you're putting on, but still, if you put some force on it and it breaks, that's probably not good, because any force, I mean, that even though that thing is pretty light, it's a pound and a half.
Here are my quick thoughts on that. I think part of the problem is that the pieces are just like they're going into the in that piece of plastic. Let's say it's 5 millimeters, but we're only using 2 millimeters just to get the rods into it, so it's not seating all the way into the plastic. And so what's happening is it pops out. Since it's only 2 millimeters into the part, it just pops. It pops very easy. Even when it's glued, it pops out very easily.
So you need the rods to be longer?
I may have to just get slightly longer rods. I have enough rods that I can recut the pieces again and just make them like another 2 or 3 millimeters longer to get the height and where everything fits. Or shove them in further and make it a little shorter, But I definitely can say that right now that because like there's like glue residue, so it only goes in so far. And I was like, hey, this isn't going in all the way. It's only going in partial way. It's not seating, and I think that's the problem. That's part of the problem, because how when it landed and then like the one side the wheels folded over on themselves. It's because I think it lands kind of, does the little hop or whatever. Then the rods are coming out of the hub, and then the wheel folds because they're not in all the way, and they can pop the glue joint really easily. And I think that's what's happening. So I think we have to definitely make sure they're seated all the way because they're not getting seated.
I mean,
I can just tell.
I mean, you talk about popping the glue joint, and I kind of think E6000. I mean, maybe the glue we're using is too brittle, and we need to use something like E6000 to glue that stuff in.
Maybe, but I just don't. Maybe. I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean,
like I said, I think we got to get it seated all the way into the part first.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I mean, there's no question that's an issue. Or we can make the part where the tube goes in longer on the part. So instead of having to recut rod, you could just adjust the part to make the tube be extended further up.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it's we've always had the wheel on the hub prior to putting it all together. That's how we were kind of just doing it. Just, because you were working on one part, I'm working on another
the hub and the wheel together, right.
Sub-assemblies. And so the stuff
I just felt it was easier to put the hub on first.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think that's part of the problem. So I think if we get all the parts fitted and all in well, I think that'll cure a lot of the issues we're having. So
okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead.
That'll be interesting to find out.
Parts
what I also wonder is that if I think there'll be some pictures we could post about the different parts or whatever, and maybe some of our listeners had some ideas about what we could do to make that better. Maybe someone like Eric or some of the other folks who do this kind of thing might want to speak up to what we could have done better to make that work and not fail so easily, or some ideas.
Be sure to go to our Facebook page and leave some remarks, and we'll put some pictures out for those guys. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm sorry that you didn't get a chance to fly it. I was really excited to hear what would happen. Yeah,
I am too. But I'm glad I caught that little break before I put it together, because that would have just sucked. Go out there and I put it on the ground and it goes, I'm like, come on. Because I did what you said before. I was doing like a little drop test in the house to drop it to see if anything was breaking, and it looked okay. And like I said, I was the rods popped out because they weren't glued in, and then I was refitting them back in. I go, it's broken right here at where the rods go in. These things aren't going in all the way. It didn't get a chance to seat.
So it might have broken. It might have broken during the drop test as well.
It might have, but when I did, when I was doing the drop test, when once the rods pop out, the wheel collapses. So and it has the rubber band, so that's
right, and that breaks it. That breaks it.
So it might have put a crack in one of it, or it could have been that the printing itself might have had a bad layer line, and that's how it is. It's like an egg. If there's a crack there, that's where it's going to follow that crack. So, but anyway, I think.
I thought about the idea too of putting resin on the outside of that.
What do you mean?
Use some not resin, epoxy is what I meant.
Oh, okay. And coating it?
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, it's layer lines, and they're not necessarily all, if they didn't come together right, the layer lines could separate. So if you put epoxy in there, then it'd be harder for it to separate.
That's true. Well, anyway, this kind of brings up the great debate that people are having, between, like I said, with FDM printers and now with the new resin printers coming out for, making parts, actual practical parts with things. And I still have to say, I think the strength still goes to the FDM, for printing this stuff. But I will have to say the resin printers, just like this last month, there were some great deals. You can get a resin printer. It's not the super fanciest one, but you can get a very basic resin printer for $100. And
our friend got one.
Biggest thing that I learned, the biggest thing that I learned was that the cool part about the resin printer, if you're making parts and you need a lot of them, or you're making something, I don't know, like let's say you were making the little wind turbulators that go along the leading edge, like on some Cubs, that go, or those little vortexes. If you were like making a part like that, it doesn't take like a lot of structure, type stress, but you need to make like, 12 of them. Well, you could fit 12 of those on your build plate on a resin, even the little small resin printers easily. And it would make them in, like half an hour or 15 minutes, and they would be perfect. And that's the part that I just, resin printers set up, they print out perfect. There's no post-production things you have, like you said, like sanding or taking off little nubs or anything. Most of them come out, usually when something fails, it fails horribly. And for, like I said, when you make 20 prints of something, pretty much all of them are identical and they look beautiful after you clean them up in the alcohol or whatever. And that's the strong suit to this thing. So I definitely say for our hobby, resin printers have a place for sure if you need multiple parts quickly.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, even if you look at the idea of making pilots or other things that have some...
pilots. Yeah, if you were making pilot buses or stuff like that, yes, absolutely. It's definitely a key player for that, And like I said, it doesn't. I shouldn't say it does it faster. They're about the same speed as an FDM printer. It's just that you can FDM printer you only print one thing, and with the resin printer, the way it does the light, it doesn't care if it has multiples. It takes the same amount of time to make 20 as it does to make one, and that's a game changer.
It's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
I agree with that.
And they don't have to be the same part.
I agree with that.
They can be different parts as long as they all fit on there. The machine doesn't care.
Right.
So
I hope to hear more about
your birthday.
Maybe. What I'm really looking forward to hear though is how things go for you as you put those parts together, and give that plane one more fly to see if the changes you made, because you did beef them up quite a bit. Those changes impacted you. But I still think the idea of doing the drop test before you go out there is the best way to save some time, because you drop from 6 or 8 inches up. That's a possibility. I know I land my plane that way sometimes. It just sort of stalls in midair. Yeah.
No problem. I'll definitely do that.
Good stuff.
Although I keep getting confused, even though we've gone over it a zillion times, I keep getting confused on the left and right part, for the wheel, for those mounting thing, which one's left and which one's the right one. Even though I look at the part and I go, yeah, this is the left one. This is for the left side. It's on the left wheel. And then I go in and try to pull the file down and I pull out the wrong file and I print the wrong thing. So I'm just like, I'll have to just keep printing 2 of these things every time just to make sure I get the right one. Keep messing that up.
You have a pile of lefts and a pile of rights.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. Well, hey, dude, looking at our time, we've zipped through another half an hour, zip-zap, very quickly.
Oh, well, good. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we took off?
No, just that I'm excited for the new year, and I hope everybody's building a project or working on something during the wintertime here, and prepping for spring, which isn't that far away.
Well, and Arizona Electric Festival, I mean, hopefully our listeners are all planning to get ready to go to that so that we can see what they're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to
Anything else you want to let everybody know? Or?
No, that's it. That's it for me.
All right. Well, from Jay from the hills of Texas and...
and AK Mike in Texas.
We'll catch you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.